Hello everyone, welcome to the channel. If it's your first time coming across this channel, you are welcome. My subscriber requested for this video. She said I should make a tutorial on how to make this dress. So in this video I'm going to be sharing all the details, which fabric is better to make this dress, the pattern, the cutting and the sewing. So if you are interested in this, please make sure you keep on watching the video and like this video, okay? So my name is Ini. I'm a self-taught fashion designer. I'm so passionate about sewing and teaching others how to sew. I put out very useful sewing content on this channel every new week, so you really need to subscribe to the channel and stick around. Make sure you turn on your notification bell because it's very important, okay? Also in this video I'm going to be introducing this miniature dress form to everyone. I made a post yesterday on the community tab. So in this video, I'll be taking my time to introduce the measurements, the dimensions of this dress form, because I'll be using it a lot in my subsequent tutorials, because it's more economical with the fabric and it helps to be spontaneous with showing a design that anyone requests for, okay? It doesn't mean I won't be using adult measurements, but I just need you to get familiar with this, okay? And thank you for understanding. So when taking measurements, we have the vertical measurement and we have horizontal measurements. Vertical measurements are measurements that go along the body. That's from the shoulder downwards. So that's the measurement I'm going to be taking first in this video, okay? So these are measurements like shoulder to bust, shoulder to under bust, shoulder to waist, shoulder to your hip, and all those measurements. Those measurements are called vertical measurements. And now on my jotter, I've taken my time now to write down the vertical measurements I'm going to be starting with. First of all, I'm going to be taking the shoulder width. Although I don't know where to categorize that, whether it's vertical or horizontal, but if you look closely, just pause this video now and look at everything I wrote on this jotter. So the first measurement I'm going to take now is the shoulder width. So I'm going to take my tape now. I'm going to place it on the width of this dress form. So when you are taking the shoulder width of your client or anybody at all, you want to make sure that you are starting from that bone where you can see on everybody's, like at the back. Make sure that you turn the person, you make the person turn back. You can't take shoulder width from the front. This is the back of this dress form. So you make sure you're taking it from the back. And if possible, you can ask the person to open both hands so that you can take note of that bone where their hands start from. I hope this makes sense, okay? So the width of this dress form now, after checking this out, I saw that I'm working with 8 inches as the width of this neckline, the width of this dress form. So I just put down that measurement and I'm moving to the next one, which is the shoulder to bust. Like I said, I'm starting with the vertical measurements. So now I'm going to turn this dress form now to the front and I'll start my vertical measurements proper. So I'll be starting from the nape of the neck. From that point, the highest point of the neck, that's that highest point. When a person stands straight, everybody has that point where you would see it looks really high. So that is the point you start your measurement from. So from that point to the bust point on this dress form is 5 inches. On an adult, you just ask the person to wear their most favorite bra so that their bust is going to be like properly packed and it's going to come up to the point where you want to see. On this dress form, for example, despite the fact that it is a really small dress form, you can still see that there's a point that shoots out the most. That is the apex of your bust, and that is the point where we want to get as the bust point. So the next measurement now is shoulder to under bust. Just as the word implies, under bust, that is the under of your bust. That's where the bust, that's part where the bust ends. I don't know if that makes sense. That's under the bust, just as it implies. Now, as you can see now, I have about 6.61 quarter. So from the highest point of the neckline, of the neck, you can see where it stops at. I'm turning this dress form sideways so that you can see what it looks like. So I'm just going to record 6.1 quarter as the result of the measurements. The next measurement I need to get is the waist point. That's shoulder to waist or half cut. Okay, so the half cut of a person is the deepest point on their body. That's that point where the body goes in. If it's even possible, you could tie a rope or tie something at that point just so that you get accurate measurements at the half cut. Even though it's not necessary for adults, after the under bust, you just add about 3 inches and it's usually okay for half cut. But for this dress form now, I'm just trying to use my eyeball to just check it out and record. Okay, so the next measurement I took on this dress form is the shoulder to the hip point. And the shoulder to the hip point is the point where the bum is fuller. Just put this on if you are measuring this on an adult, just check for where the bump is fuller. Some people have a big butt, and just make sure that the biggest part of the butt, that point is where you are taking as the hip point. For this dress form now, mine is giving me 12 inches. I'm using 12 inches as the hip point. So the hip point for this dress form is actually 12 inches. And for the full length, I'm working with 15.5 inches, just as you can see. It depends on the dress I'll be making because this dress form is adjustable. But for now, I'll be making use of this 15.5 inches. If I need to dress longer, I'll take note of it and make it longer. Okay, so that is all for the vertical measurements, and as you can see, that 7.5 is the same thing as 7.5 I wrote there. Okay, so moving on now to the horizontal measurements. Horizontal measurements are measurements that go around the body, like a round. So those points where I marked, I'm just going to be going there now to get the circumference of those points. So remember we had 5 inches as the bust point. So that point now, to get the horizontal measurement, that's a round. I'm just going to place my tape around it now to get the round bust like this. And after taking my measurements, what I have here is 17 inches. Since this dress form is small, it is not a normal body size. Of course, I was having a little difficulty placing the tape, but I eventually did it. And after doing this, this is what I have, 17 inches. So you want to make sure that your tape is going around the fullest area. That's the fullest part of the bust if you are taking this measurement for anybody at all. Then for the under bust, just like I did for the bust, I'm just going to go to that point where I said is the bust under bust point and take the circumference of that point. And after doing this, I got 14.5 inches, and I'm just going to record that on my jotter. Okay, so after doing that now, the next measurement was the half cut, and I'm just going to go ahead now and measure to get the circumference of my half cut. So I'll place this tape across, and what I'm getting here is 14 inches. So when you're taking measurement, you want to try to put in a finger to just give it that ease. Okay, you don't want to be taking measurements that are too tight. Okay, you want them fitted, but at the same time, you don't want it to be too tight on the body. Okay, so now at that 12-inch point where I got as the shoulder to the hip, I'm going to put my tape across there and get the circumference of the hip. So simply put your tape around. If you're measuring an adult or anybody at all, just put your tape across the fullest area of the bum and get the measurement. So in this case, 19 was too much, but I later settled for 18.5, just as you can see here. So after doing that, I'm just going to keep this aside and I'll go straight to my pattern paper and start drafting the dress we have on the thumbnail. So to get the paper I'm using here, what I simply did was to divide my round hip by 2. The round hip I'm working with, I divided it by 2 to get this paper. Also, to get the length of the paper, I actually used the full length I'm working with. That's the miniature, the dress form's full length, because that dress we are making is going to require that you take your actual measurements for the dress. There is not going to be any half cut joining, just like you do for maybe Bustier's Ankara dresses or any other kind of dress. This dress is going to be cut from the top of the nape of the neck to wherever you decide you want it to be. That's how you're going to cut it to that point together on one pattern paper. I hope you understand that. Now I'm just marking my vertical measurements, the same vertical measurement I just took now. I hope you understand. I'm just marking from that start point I ruled. I'm marking 5 inches, marking 6.6 1/4, marking 7.5, and I'm marking the hip line, which is 12 inches. So just as we would normally do for any size of dress, you just mark your vertical measurement and rule the lines out. So after doing this now, I'm just going to go ahead to draft the pattern for the dress. So first things first, I'm dividing the shoulder measurement divided by 2, and I'm placing it at the top part there. Whatever shoulder measurement you're working with, just divide it by 2 and place it at the top part. Okay, and now I'm going to come down for the shoulder slant, and I'm using 0.75 inches. That is 3/4 of this tape. I'm using 3/4 inches. If you're drafting for an adult, please make sure you are using 1 inch, at least 1 inch. So because this dress is not going to have any sleeve, that's why I'm using the exact shoulder measurement divided by 2. If I were to be adding a sleeve, I would be adding maybe 0.75 inches or half of an inch to join the sleeve. Okay, so now to get the bust and the chest line, before doing anything else, I'm just going to label this line so that everyone understands what we are doing here. So that's the bust line, under bust, the waistline, and the hip line. So the line we are yet to get now is the chest line. And to get that chest line, I'm just going to bring this dress form, and I'm just going to use about 1 inch for this dress form, because this dress form is a mini dress form. If I use the regular bust measurement divided by 6 plus 1.5, it's going to be too much. So from the bust line, I'm just going up by 1 inch. Okay, and from that point, I'm just going to connect with a dotted line to the shoulder slope I put out there. So before that, I'm just going to extend this line, and I will label that line chest line. So now that I have my chest line, I'm just going to drop whatever I had as the shoulder measurement divided by 2 on that line. Please take note that these measurements work for even adult sizes. Just replace these numbers with your own figure. So now I'm going to connect with dotted lines to meet the shoulder slant. So once that is done, I can now draft the armhole. And for the armhole, I'm going to divide my bust measurement divided by 4, and I'll place it on that chest line so that I can draft the armhole. So now I'm just going to find the midpoint of those dotted lines I put at first, and I'm going to mark the midpoints. And from there, I'm just going to come in by about half of an inch to 3/4 inches. That's either half of an inch or either 0.5 inches or 0.75 inches. Then I'm going to connect the 3 lines and create my armhole. And now for the neckline, the formula to get a neckline is the round bust divided by 12. And in this case, I'm having 1.4166. And since that 4 in front of the 1 is bigger, more than 1, I'm going to approximate that to 1.5 inches. So I'm using 1.5 inches as the neckline of this pattern. Then after getting that neckline, I'm just going to slope, that's create that shoulder slant that I have been talking about. Moving on, this dress, if you look closely, you realize that this dress is a princess dart bustier, which means we are going to draft a princess dart for this pattern. And now I'm taking my measurements, and this measurement, I've said it so many times on this channel, to get your nipple to nipple point for any bust size, all you need to do is divide your round bust measurement by 8, and whatever you get, just subtract 1 from that measurement, and that is your nipple to nipple point. And in this case, I got 1.12 thereabout, and since the number in front of the 1 is less than it's not up to 5, I'm not going to be approximating. I'm just going to use it as it is. So now I'm going to locate 1/4, and I'm going to mark it from the center of this paper. This is going to serve as my bust span measurement, which is also known as nipple to nipple measurement. This video is very useful because I am sharing all the formulas that can save you all the stress while you are drafting patterns. These formulas work, just replace them with your own measurements. Okay, so after doing this, now I'm going to moving on. Now I'm just going to complete the bodies of this pattern and then go ahead to draft the bustier. So now I'm just dividing the under bust measurement, which is 14.5 inches, divided by 4, and then I'm going to mark it on the under bust line. Then moving on, I'm going to get the waist measurement, which is 14 inches, divided by 4. I'm also going to mark that on the waist line. I hope this makes sense. Anything you don't understand, just make sure you are rewinding this video and you are taking your time to just understand it. If you are yet to like this video, please just like this video. It takes a lot for someone to do this voiceovers. Just appreciate and thank you so much in advance. So I also divided the hip measurement, the round hip measurement, by 4, and I placed it on the hip line. Once I'm done with this, I'm going to create the curve, just like a slight curve to connect the waist point to the hip point. And now, since this is going to be a flare at the bottom area, I'm going to just open it a bit. This is not a pencil skirt, obviously, so I'm not going to be making the down pencil. I'm just going to continue with that opening, just like this. And now to get the neckline of this dress, if you look closely at that dress, you will see that the neckline came down to almost the bust, the lady's bust point. But of course, this is a miniature dress form. What am I trying to achieve if I go ahead to expose the boobs of this dress form? So I'm just going to take the measurement just around the chest line area, and I think that should be fine. I'm just going to use about 3 inches or 3.25 inches. That's that first line. You can see that pencil on right now. Take note of these lines on the tape so that you know how to accurately use them. So after doing that, I just connect from that point down, and now I have the V neckline. So moving on, the next thing I want to do is to draft the princess dart bustier. And on this channel, I've shared so many times how to actually get this measurements and what to put on each side of the waistline, but I'm going to share it one more time. Even the previous video I uploaded, the video before this video, you would see that I drafted bustier for a very big bust size and I shared this formula, but now I'm just going to share it one more time. And the formula here is easy. All you need to do is subtract your round bust, under bust measurement from your round bust measurement. Whatever you get, just divide that number by 2. And in this case, I have 1.25. And if I place 1.25 on this miniature dress form, I think it's going to be too much. So I simply removed half of an inch from that measurement. So I measured 0.75 inches on the part going towards the armhole, and on the part going towards the center, I simply put half of an inch. I think that should be just fine because this is a miniature dress form. Whatever I got on that line, I'm placing it on the under bust and waist line. I'm also bringing it down to the hip line because I told you that this dress is going to be cut together. There's no separate joining at the half cut. So I'll bring down all those lines, and now I'm going to create the curve from the under bust area to the bust point. This is what forms the curve and creates the room where the bust sits. I really hope you understand this. I have so many videos on this channel where I have explained this. If you don't understand, I'm just going to link a video where you get to understand this better. Okay, so after that, on the other part, I'm just going to connect it with a slant like this. And with that, we have our first dart, the under bust dart. Now to get the over bust dart, that's also called the princess dart, which is going to be in between the armhole area. I'm just going to take my tape from that armhole slope, shoulder slope. I'm going to measure that, take that measurement and divide whatever I have at that point into 2. At that point, I think I had about 3.75 inches, and I'm just going to fold my tip into two like this, and whatever I have, I'm going to mark that point. It is at that point I'm going to get my armhole dart. So since I used half of an inch on that part, on the part towards the center, I'm using half of an inch at that point as well. So at that point where I marked the half of an inch, just look closely, you're going to understand. I went up now from the bust line above by just 0.25 inches. If it's for a big person, an adult, make sure you're going up by at least 0.75 inches. This is a miniature dress form, and so I did not need to go up by more than half of an inch. And now I connected all the lines, and I'm going to create a very nice curve at that point. If you've been following this channel, I always emphasize on why you need to curve to make sure everywhere on your bustier looks curved, because if you fail to do this when you are cutting, you would not like the outcome. So after that, the important thing you need to do now is to replace that half of an inch you are using at the armhole area, because if you fail to do this, your fabric is going to be short. Okay, so I'll start replacing all the darts now, and then we will be done with the front bodies. So whatever I had at that point, I'm going to replace that on that line. On the other part, on the waistline, I'm going to replace what I have there as well. And on the hip line as well, I'm going to replace what I have there. So once I'm done with this, I'm going to reconnect, and I've always said this, it doesn't matter the shape you are getting at this point. When you are done sewing, you see that everything is going to fall back in place. Okay, and with this, we are 95% done with the front bodies. What I just need to do here is to add half of an inch at the shoulder area. It's always a good idea to do this so that you don't run into trouble when you are sewing. I'm also connecting the new armhole, that one we extended by, and that is all about the front bodies. So the parts you can see me labeling now with the pen, with the marker, just signifies that I will be cutting that part out. And now over to the back bodies of this dress. The first thing I'm doing now is to rule a line that demarcates the front from the back. And that line is going to serve as the center of our back bodies. So it is from that line now I'm going to mark 1 inch for the zip allowance. You can mark any amount of inches you prefer for your zip allowance, but I'm just going to use 1 inch for the sake of this illustration. So after reeling this line, I'm just going to label that as the zip line, the zip allowance. So with that, I'm going to go ahead now and extend all the lines we used for the front bodies, and this makes it easier and ensures that our lines are accurate. So just as you would normally do when you are drafting your pattern, I'm just going to transfer the shoulder measurement divided by 2 for the back bodies as well. I'm going to transfer the body measurements to the back as well. Then I'll go ahead and label these lines so that everyone understands what is going on here. So please take note that the shoulder measurement divided by 2 starts from that zip line. So you have no business touching the zip allowance. Do not start your measurements from the zip line. Start your measurements after the zip allowance, the 1 inch allowance. Okay, so for the back neckline, if you looked at that picture on the thumbnail, you see that the back neckline is not as low as the front neckline. So for this one now, I just used 0.75 inches for the neckline at the back, and this should be just fine. Don't forget your width, your neckline width should be the same for front and back, but you can play around with the depth for your necklines. So also measure that bust point and nipple to nipple point on these back bodies, and the difference here is that I'm using just half of an inch on the waist point and extending the line because at the back there's no bust, so the dart gets almost very close to the chest line. So I'll connect this half of an inch to this line like this. Just look at what I'm doing. Then I'm going to connect it down to the hip area. I went up by like 2 inches from the hip area and I connected. For an adult, you need to go up by about 4.5 inches before you connect the darts. So I did the same thing I did at the front. I used just half of an inch and I connected. But after doing that, I realized that half of an inch was too much for the back, because we don't really need curves at that back because we don't have any bust at the back. So I reduced it to just 1/4 inch instead of half of an inch, and then I connected it back. So this is me trying to clean off the first half of an inch I put at first and reduce it, like trying to reduce it to 1/4 inch so that it is not too curvy at the back. If you're making this for an adult, for the back body is half of an inch on both sides is just fine, except the person also is on a big side. That's when you use 1 inch or 0.75 inches on both sides. Okay, so the last thing now we need to do on these back bodies is to take note of the fact that at the back of our bodies, the waist area goes inside. Okay, so this is the back of this body. So to get that curve on the back bodies, what we need to do is to take in a dart, and now on that waistline I'm just going to go in by about 1/4 inch, that's 0.25 inches, and actually create a dart. So it's very important to note that any dart you take, you want to make sure you are replacing that dart so that you do not run short of your fabric and run into problems while sewing. So the shoulder area, I replaced half of an inch. I added half of an inch just as I did on the front bodies, and so that little dart there is going to be cut out on the zip area, and that is going to be cut out as well. And I'm just labeling the front and the back, and now it's time to cut this out, just as you can see. So at this point now I'm going to create a curve, just as you can see, to create room for the bust. That place is that's the curve for our bustier. So I'll create a curve and I'm going to cut out this part like this. So I'm going to take note of the fact that I have not added sewing allowance to this pattern. Okay, so when I'm cutting this fabric, this pattern on my fabric, I'm going to add the allowance to the fabric. Yeah, okay. So in my next video, I'm going to be sharing how to sew these and how to add those flays in between the dress, because in that video, as you can see, in between the dress we have some flays attached at strategic points. So in my next video, please make sure you subscribe to this channel. Just turn on your notification bell so that anytime I upload that video, you will be notified. Please do that, and I really appreciate. If you found any value in this video, you just need to like this video now, just to encourage me to upload the sewing part of this video, please. Thank you so much, and I would really appreciate it. Okay, so this is the cutting aspect, and that's all about this video. See you guys in my next video. Take care. Bye.